Hello there, and good to be with you again. I'm Howard Bentham, and this is OxTalks, the podcast powered by Enterprise Oxfordshire, the new name for OxLEP. Enterprise Oxfordshire benefits from the support of Oxfordshire County Council, enabling this new organisation to continue the great work previously offered by the county's local enterprise partnership. Oxfordshire is home to many incredible innovators and business leaders, and OxTalks gives you the opportunity to meet these remarkable people and hear their ideas on current business issues. Although Oxfordshire is our geographical focus, we're delighted to have viewers and listeners to OxTalks from across the UK and overseas. We always welcome your feedback, comments and suggestions too. So please feel free to share your thoughts on the discussion topics on our social channels. We are at Enterprise Oxon on X and Enterprise Oxfordshire on LinkedIn. This series also sees the launch of our new official OxTalks Instagram account, home to dedicated clips, news and all things OxTalks. Be sure to follow along at OxTalks_podcast. You can also email us by using the email address on the podcast description. In this edition, we'll explore one Oxfordshire woman's fascinating career trajectory and study her success in launching a wellness brand in today's market. Signed to one of the world's most renowned modelling agencies after leaving her medical studies at Oxford University, appearing on the covers of Vogue and Elle magazines, our OxTalks guest has, in the last 6 months, gone on to launch an award-winning wellness brand backed by science and stocked by iconic industry favourites such as Daylesford Organic. Before we meet her and hear her story, it's interesting to look more widely at the wellness market and how the United Kingdom currently fits into this globally. The UK ranks number 1 in the world for growth in our domestic wellness market, with consumers spending nearly a third more on wellness compared with 2019. The wellness economy represents a growing and unusually large percentage of the country's total GDP, with £224 billion being spent in this sector in 2022, making it the 5th largest wellness market in the world. It's a lucrative but saturated market dominated by major players. So how easy is it to gain a foothold in this sector as a small, independent business repeatedly coming up against industry giants with production and marketing budgets that dwarf the smaller players? What can you do to stand out in the crowd? Equally, what are the pitfalls of the health and wellness market where customer buying habits can be notoriously fickle? Our OxTalks guest has a fascinating background. Once a student of medicine at Oxford University, followed by a stellar modelling career and a genuine passion for healthy food and lifestyle. She's now the most recent winner of the accolade Best New Business at this year's Oxfordshire Business Awards. I'm delighted to welcome to OxTalks the founder of wellness brand NEWROAD, Catherine Hurley Arbibe. Catherine, it is great to speak to you. Thank you for coming to talk to us on OxTalks. Before we look back over your fascinating career, and it really is a fascinating career, can we start with the here and now and your company NEWROAD?
Yeah.
Very much a new venture. I know you've been working hard in the background prior to launch for a few years, but it's only been sort of out there, if you like, for a good few months now. Where did the idea of creating a health supplement and a wellness brand come from?
I guess it surfaced slowly. I've always been interested in health in general, food in particular, and I guess the turning point was discovering the gut microbiome. I just read about it because it's in my general area of interest. So we talk about it a lot now. Zoe's done quite a lot actually to create awareness for it, and there are lots of labs around the world working on it, and we see it in the Sunday supplements or online an awful lot now. But 4 years ago when I first discovered it, it was relatively new. It's a new area of science, and I just found it unbelievably clever and important. It's something which affects so many areas of your health that it was just mind-blowing in many ways. So that's when I started to think, actually more on a personal level in the beginning. I came across the American Gut Project, which is this huge study of 15,000 participants. They analysed basically the intestines of the contents of 15,000 people, that samples sent in from all over the world. And they arrived at this conclusion that people eating a variety of 30 different plant foods a week, they had a more diverse gut microbiome than people eating 10 or less. And this is quite significant because the diversity of gut microbiome introduces a lot of resilience to the gut and all sorts of aspects, really, which maybe we'll go into a little bit later. So discovering that really, first of all, on a maybe academic level, I found it really, really interesting. And then on a personal level, thinking about, well, how does that relate to us in our family and what we do? And I thought quite smugly that we eat a lot of fruit and veg, and we do, and we did, but it was often the same type of food on rotation. So loads of carrots, loads of apples, but the more unusual types of fruit, which sometimes actually are quite hard to get hold of, or vegetables in particular, or beans actually in particular, which I find are really, really important. I think in the UK in particular, we don't eat enough of. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. And then I started doing a fresh version for ourselves, really. My habit at the time was drop our daughter off to school, go for a little run in the park with the dog, come back, make some porridge and make up a little blend. And I thought, well, I could just adjust it slightly and try and disguise some broccoli or cauliflower or beans or whatever in my typical strawberry and blueberry and banana. The berries are also very, very important because they're so good for you, and they also taste great. So I started with a fresh version and then started talking to people about this and realised that lots of other people also would find it beneficial to have something like that. And that's when I started to think about, well, how could I offer this commercially?
Yes. How did you go from the idea like that, very much a light bulb moment above the blender, to scaling it up to a business?
So it was lots of experimenting. First of all, with taste, there were a few things which I felt were essential from the outset. I wanted it to be organic. I wanted it to be as high as possible in terms of quality on every level, in terms of supply. And I think there's a whole, plethora of options for people looking for supplements. And I thought, if I'm doing this, I want to do it genuinely something that I would want to take, and in a way in which I think is going to be very, very beneficial. And that meant not cutting corners in so many respects, really. So that was the motivation from the very beginning. And we've really, really stuck to that. But, it's a long road of sampling, first of all, trying to decide what to include in terms of what's good for your gut. And then, all fruit and veg really is good for your gut on the whole, but there are some that are very helpful. So it was trying to include that, but also then working on things like, taste and also colour, because well, for me anyway, maybe it's the same for other people, but for me, I felt like sometimes you can taste a powdered supplement, let's say, where it tastes fine, but it doesn't match what it looks like, and that for me doesn't work with my brain. So there were lots of little criteria like that, which were important to meet, but some things which I knew from the outset, and some things which I learned along the way. So I wanted it to be organic. Organic food, I think, is in some it's great if you can. It's not always essential, but when you're drying a powder and you're removing the water, it becomes more important, because any effect of any pesticides is multiplied, really, because you're concentrating it. So that was very important. And then something I didn't know but discovered along the way was there's a huge difference between how your powders are dried, actually, in terms of preserving the fibre and the polyphenols and the vitamins. So I discovered that freeze drying is the ultimate way to do it, to maintain it as close as possible to fresh. So that became an absolute criteria.
So the R&D, is incredible. Just into what effectively is 30 natural products. Freeze-dried in a sachet.
Yes,
but multiplying that up to make it a scalable business.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've got to become a business person as well as
totally. So that was about
biochemist.
Finding the best people to work with. I think it's really, really important that when you're working, well, in any area really, but that you feel that people that you're working with are aligned in terms of values and what they consider important. So it was a huge struggle to find. You can find organic food, apples and pears, no problem, but try and find, your Jerusalem artichoke and your different types of berries and lentils and everything all in organic form. That was a huge challenge at the beginning. So finding our supplier in France was a huge win. It was a long time coming, but it was such a relief when we found it. And then in terms of the processing of it, so it's a minimally processed whole food, and we needed support with this, obviously. So we found we found a company in the UK, and then because it was quite complicated, trying to combine these 30 in a way which wasn't financially prohibitive, we had to work very carefully with a very clever lady who was able to understand that vision and help us with that. So that's why we moved to Denmark in the end, because there was an amazing lady there who is very into it and really wanted to help us achieve this aim.
And the name NEWROAD, there's a nice story behind that as well.
Yeah. So the name came later. At the beginning, it was very much about trying to make this product, first of all, fresh, and then finding a way in which it could work in a dried format. One, because it's just easier commercially, I think, especially when you're starting, and it makes it. Part of the idea was that we've always said that it's important to recognise that actually eating fresh, your 30 a week, is superior. It's a better way to do it. Growing your own in your own garden is better, but the problem that we were trying to satisfy, I suppose, in creating this product is that it's not always possible. It's not possible all the time, or for some people it's not possible. If you work long hours, if you live alone, it can be really wasteful, because this 30 a week doesn't have to be 30 full portions. It can be, much less than that, but it can also be then wasteful if you're buying a whole cabbage or, and you're living alone. So the convenience element of it was very, very important. We worked a long time on the product. I spent a long time at the kitchen table just mixing up different combinations. And then when it was sort of ready to be offered out as a commercial product, we were thinking, my husband and I, who's my co-founder, started thinking about something which really meant something. We don't really like fancy names on brands that feel a little bit too clever. It had to be something which really felt true, and started brainstorming and came back to the philosophy behind the brand is very much, this product is a gut health product, but the philosophy is a little bit broader. It's about finding a way back to living as purely and as naturally as possible, but in a world in which that's not always possible. So with a little bit of help in terms of convenience. But my truest association with living a wholesome life, I suppose, is when we were younger, we used to go on holiday to Ireland, where my parents are from and where I lived for a while. And dinner every night literally did involve taking a bucket and spade and crossing the road down the fields to dig up the potatoes and the carrots and everything else and bring them back and put them on the boil. So I felt like that was what I wanted the company to be in terms of philosophy. So it felt like a good fit. And it's not wrong in terms of the actual words, what it means. So I
think that's a lovely story, actually. And so your passion boils over, much like the potatoes, I dare say. Your passion, everyone can feel your passion in what you're saying, Catherine. You've got the product now, you've figured it out. How do you make that a viable business? Because suddenly you've got to become a business person, and that's a very different skill.
Yeah. So first of all, it's making sure you got the product right. So an idea is great and researching myself, but it was very important to bring experts in terms of guiding it and also just verifying and make sure we were on the right track. So that's number one. Then actually the actual production, so sourcing the food, deciding what goes in there on the formulation, the best method to do it. But, along the way, everything is a challenge, and it's a matter of just literally every day is problem solving and finding the best solution you can. There are some things which really you can't compromise on. That's, for us, definitely the product. But other things, like let's say packaging or quality of printing or things like that, sometimes you just have to take the best possible solution that you can in the moment. And then you do it slowly. So we did a test run, made some adjustments, and then did a commercial run, and literally you try and stay across all of it as much as possible, but you have to also trust the people you're working with. And then in terms of getting it out to people, that's a whole other story in terms of exposure, because for sure we knew everyone we spoke to about it really liked the product, they liked the concept, the taste, there was definitely a need for it, but you have to, you're tiny in a sea of so many wellness brands and people offering similar products, not exactly the same, but you have to try and get noticed. And that is, especially on a direct customer business, it's a lot about trying to get your head around socials and speaking to people and delivering your message in a way which resonates with people, that really means something to them. So that's trial and error, really, you know.
Have you looked for sort of business support in that? I'm thinking Enterprise Oxfordshire here.
Yeah, totally. In terms of airing our problems, and they in particular, but people have been fantastic in terms of listening, making suggestions, making connections, suggesting just to speak to this person or that person. That's been really, really helpful on a practical level, but also just on a moral, in terms of support and motivating level.
The ups and downs are quite big, aren't they?
Yeah,
you're
daily. Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
You try and keep in mind, I guess, the bigger picture and why you started it, and you remind yourself that it's a good thing. I mean, that's what motivates me. I genuinely think it's something which is very, very helpful, and in some ways, it's a very fine line. It's hard to balance it up, because I feel a huge responsibility for people who are looking for supplements are often already in a slightly vulnerable position. You're looking for help with something. And I think it's very, very important that companies are responsible never to exploit that, never to oversell that. But it also means then your messaging can be quite gentle, which isn't very competitive. So it's very hard to strike the right balance, but trial and error gets you there. And you know, it's exposure. It's trying to get in the press. It's trying to write blogs about things that you think people are interested in, and trying to share that message as much as possible.
Let's just take a little step back then and look over your career. Your student days were at St Hilda's.
That's right.
At Oxford University, studying medicine.
Yeah.
Was that a long-held passion to go into medicine?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It started with a passion for biology, and then chemistry, and knowing that I really liked working with people, and trying to help, I suppose, in any way possible. So that was a vague understanding at that time, and then, you know, as you get older, it sort of develops into a more precise, this is what I think I should do, this is what I would like to do. But I had actually started modelling years before that, so I was trying to run them in parallel, which was very, very difficult. I mean, medicine at Oxford is a very demanding course, and flying around the world for, you know, a 3-hour job here in New York, and then, you know, back to Paris, and then that was very tricky, exhausting, impossible to fit both in, to be honest. So I started by asking for a year out, and then 2 years out, and then actually never returned. And then, you know, had a few business interests, I suppose, and then had a family, and it became less straightforward to go back. And then at a point when we moved back to Oxford, actually about 5 years ago, I seriously thought about going back to it. And in the meantime, actually, I had become very interested in neuroscience, and so considered that instead of medicine. But ultimately, I was doing the maths on my age and thinking, I don't know how practical it would be to, you know, to be entering into that sort of path. So this
becoming
sort of
a brain
aligns.
Surgeon before you're 55.
But probably wouldn't have been that. But still, it felt like a better fit. At around the same sort of time, I discovered the gut microbiome, and it felt like a better fit, probably a more practical fit, to move into that area of work, but offering a different service, I suppose. Yeah.
Your modelling career has been, well, nothing short of sensational. You've been on the cover of Vogue and Elle magazines and plenty else besides. You said that you were doing that before studies. So, I mean, how did it all come about?
Usually how model agencies sign up models, they will spot people and then approach them and just say, have you ever thought about modelling? And
really?
that kind of thing. So that happened to me, and I was probably 13 at the time, actually, visiting from Ireland and just minding my own business along Slough High Street. But she was really lovely, and this is probably very unbelievable in the world we live in now, but I didn't know what a model was. Apart from not fashion models, and I wasn't freaked out, but I just thought no, and then went back to Ireland and then saw some fashion magazines. I thought, oh, there's that agency. It wasn't actually the agency I ended up signing with, because I was living in Ireland, and when we moved back then to the UK, my mum entered me in a competition with Storm, and I won that, and so signed with them, and so was with them for, I don't know, 25 years or
what's it like when you see a copy of Vogue and there's you on the front?
Yeah, you get used to it, you know. I suppose it doesn't feel like you in the same way that taking a a snapshot with your friend feels like you, I suppose. It feels very removed. And also, it's not really you, because to come to that point where the image is created, it's you, but it's also the stylist with the clothes, it's also the lighting, it's also the camera, it's also the photographer, it's also the makeup artist, the hairstylist. So it's a whole group effort to become an image, which,
Share with us some of the modelling career highlights. I mean, it's a world that so few inhabit, but by its nature, we all look on.
Yeah. It's possibly more ordinary than you might expect. I mean, the people that I've come across, I don't know whether it's because I was with a great agency from the start, and then actually after I took a year out from university, I moved to Paris to be placed there for a little bit. And I've also done a stint in New York, and my agencies were always great and responsible, and I never, ever felt in a position where I was vulnerable. And I don't know if possibly like having a very strong other occupation, medicine at Oxford, or even before that, I was very, very into my studies, that probably afforded a little sort of buffer, maybe, because there was always something else very important in my life. So maybe that positioned me slightly differently. But for sure, the people I worked with were great people. They were kind, they were caring. It was very gentle. It was, it's not really what you hear a lot of, but that was certainly my experience, and still is. I'm still in touch with my agencies, and they're great, great people. They're, kind and Yeah,
you're probably painting a picture that, again, the rest of us looking on, I guess, through the eyes of the media, so I have a slightly different picture.
Some things were difficult. So travelling by myself very young was difficult. One, because at the very beginning, you're a little bit scared of being in New York by yourself, and so that was a challenge. But then on a different level, like being away from home a lot. So when I was, all of my holidays, and very often after school, or very often taking time out during term time, when other people would be maybe developing hobbies or hanging out socially, I was working. So that, I definitely think that formed me. And in some ways it arrests your development on some levels, but on other levels you get a lot of experience of travelling, negotiating contracts, meeting a lot of people.
The modelling industry, not without its issues on health and well-being, of course. I mean, often called out for setting an unrealistic standard for beauty, linked to an unhealthy body image, can contribute to things like poor mental health and even eating disorders. Has the modelling industry sufficiently put its house in order yet, in your view?
Certainly, the concept of beauty and fashion has definitely opened up. It's much broader, which is a brilliant thing. And that's in terms of size, age, everything. I mean, it's definitely very, very positive. Could they do more? It's tricky, It's tricky. In some ways, I see how there are fashion designers, let's say Jean-Paul Gaultier, from way back, he wasn't following the traditional view of beauty or fashion. He was doing his own thing. He was trying to be, I think, very inclusive from before we started talking about being broader in terms of our view of beauty and fashion. So it's definitely moving in the right direction. I think there are other things to consider now from when I was modelling full-time. Social media is a huge influence just in terms of the amount of time people spend on it. It can't but be influential on some level. So I think certainly around that area, we need to work towards restrictions and some sort of buffers, particularly for younger people.
As a model, how does the industry more widely affect your thinking around business, and particularly what you're doing and what you're promoting?
My life experience has sort of in some ways directed where the product has gone. So definitely flying around the place and, being on different time zones several times a week sometimes, and not always having a regular pattern definitely informed a little the decision to have it as a product which is very transportable, very convenient in sachet form, let's say, where you can just grab and go. So it's for, people traveling a lot. It's for people with long work hours. It's for people who don't necessarily want to have breakfast. It's for people who like to go to the gym before they eat. So yeah, there's definitely an awareness of how it is to live in a way in which your work is less predictable and less structured.
Catherine, thank you for the moments. We'll chat again shortly. You're listening to OxTalks, the podcast powered by Enterprise Oxfordshire. Feel free to get in touch with the Enterprise Oxfordshire team to comment on what you've been hearing. Find us on social media. We are on X at Enterprise Oxon, or via LinkedIn, search for Enterprise Oxfordshire. And now via our new official OxTalks Instagram account, home to dedicated clips, news, and all things OxTalks. Be sure to follow along at OxTalks_podcast. Perhaps you run a company or organisation that's looking for some specific help, or simply need a pointer towards the most appropriate business advice available. Why not try the Enterprise Oxfordshire Business Support Tool?
Enterprise Oxfordshire's business support tool is here to help your company, whether you are just starting out, growing, or ready to take on a new business challenge. If you are looking for the latest advice and support, complete our business support tool today and get set to receive a bespoke action plan for your organisation. Head to enterpriseoxfordshire.com to find out more.
Let's speak more with Catherine Hurley Arbibe, founder of the award-winning wellbeing brand NEWROAD. As I mentioned in the introduction, the UK market is highly saturated with products. You're up against the major players, international pharmaceutical companies who inhabit this space. How do you cut through? This is not easy.
No, it's hard. It's hard because, like you say, they have huge budgets behind them in terms of creating exposure for themselves. So it's hard, and you have to be creative. And it's about, I suppose, doing collaborations with other brands that are aligned with you. It's about trying to get interest from the press. It's about staying true to your story also, I think, and people can see when the motivation is authentic, I hope, and trying to meet a need for a particular group of people where that need is not being met necessarily. So for us, our USPs on the product are definitely that it's organic and that it's freeze-dried and that it is this convenience of 30 a week in a great tasting way, but you have to stay true to that and have faith that eventually the exposure will come and that people will discover your product. But certainly going into retailers helps. People are already there looking for that type of thing. So you already have an interested audience, I suppose. But social media is hard in terms, it's the way to reach people, but just trying to figure out the best way to deliver your message in a way which resonates with people. And that might be talking about your product, but it also might be just something related to it. So it might be recipes or how to use it in other ways, or it might be talking about the science of it, which people are very, very interested in. So it's being creative, and collaborations are very good and helpful.
And trying to get the product seen by more people, because customers can be very fickle, as we well know. So what is the marketing strategy? What are you sort of hanging your hat on?
I suppose on our unique aspects of our product, it is a unique product in itself. So we're just trying to hold on to that message and hope that that's important to people, that people who, for me trying to develop the product, it was very important that it was organic. It was very important that it was pure. That's an unusual thing in supplements because so often you have, binders, fillers, emulsifiers, sweeteners, colours, so many preservatives and additives. And that was very, very important because they're not good for you. And sometimes they're actively quite bad for you. Some of them, like some other products, let's say gut health products, who may have isolated nutrients. So they're not, so that can still be helpful helpful, but it wasn't our philosophy. We wanted it to be in a form which the body recognises, so it's more bioavailable and as natural as possible, completely natural.
And how important has it been getting your product stocked at Daylesford Organic?
Brilliant. It's fantastic. I mean, it's honestly such a perfect alignment for us. It was really always on our radar because we just love what they're doing, you know.
And how did it come about? You a suitcase full of the sachets and knocked the door?
So it originally came about from a good friend who introduced us to another friend who introduced us to Daylesford, and we had the opportunity to present the product. And very luckily, they loved it. They loved all the things that we love about it. So they've been brilliant. Yeah.
Do you think in recent years our attitudes to wellness as a society and as consumers has changed?
I think definitely. So as a society, I think COVID probably pushed us a little bit in a direction of awareness, probably. And I think a lot of people no longer think it's okay to wait until there's a problem then to try and fix it. And that, and we realise that so much is interconnected with not just food and supplements, but with exercise and sleep and stress and good relationships. All of those things work towards wellness. But definitely, I think there's a movement towards being proactive in our health, taking it into our own hands. And there's so much information out there. Sometimes possibly there's too much information and it can make it a little difficult to decipher exactly what rings true and what is true. But overall, the general direction is very good. I think that we realise that we can really influence our life, how long we live, disease, and how well we live.
It's an interesting comparison, isn't it, to the appetite for wellness products in this country. The latest government data from May this year indicates that nearly 2/3 of adults are overweight. Just over a quarter of those are obese. Those figures have been showing an upward trend since 2015. Recent conversations as to whether weight loss jabs should be available on the NHS. Are we now of a mind that we can, if you like, medicate our way to better health? And that's something should we say, the wellness market could cash in on?
It depends what your motivations are. I mean, I think being overweight or obese is not a good thing. So if people need help with that beyond lifestyle changes and food, or if they have other comorbidities, which means that's difficult, I think it's a good thing overall for your health, but it's not ideal.
Big congratulations on your recent win at the Oxfordshire Business Awards.
Thank you.
You picked up the New Business Award sponsored by Enterprise Oxfordshire. What was it about NEWROAD that stood out to the judges, do you think?
Gosh, I wonder. I think certainly the product, for a start. It's a unique product. It offers a solution to something which we are now all talking about, gut health, and in particular this 30 a week. Not always easy to do, or it's not, or possibly there are moments in our lives where it's not easy to do. So it's a convenient solution, and it's organic and freeze dried, so done in the best possible way, I think. So the product already speaks for itself. And then beyond that, in terms of company philosophy, I think possibly they felt how passionate we are about the
There's no doubt
gut
about
health.
That. We feel your passion.
So maybe it's that.
How many of you work at NEWROAD? Or paint the picture of the business.
So it's me and my husband, who's also my co-founder, and it's us permanently. And now we have another lady who helps us with across all areas. I mean, it's meant to be, I suppose on an admin level, but actually just like us, she's able to work across everything you have to with a startup. You have to 1 minute be doing, the something on the production or the manufacture, and then you have to be making sure that the customers are happy, and you have to make sure the supply and the retailers. So everyone has to work across everything. And then outside of that, we have a whole range of consultants and freelancers that we tap into and work with, brilliant people. And that's key, making sure that you can find great people to work with, people who believe in the product they're selling or working on, and people who, work in the same way, have the same philosophies about work and other people.
You've got one product at the moment, the NEWROAD 30.
Yes, yeah.
Any plans to sort of expand the range? What's next
Yes,
for
maybe.
NEWROAD?
I mean, a probiotic would sit very nicely because ours is a prebiotic, really. So it would make a complete picture for the gut. So we're researching that with experts, really, to see what would be the best offering there. And then we're doing lots of fun things like looking at putting the blend in chocolate, for example. Since the beginning, with the formulation from the very beginning, the idea was to have something that tastes great. So taste of berries, it's got 6 lots of berries, but almost disguising the broccoli and the cauliflower and the beans and the lentils and everything behind it. So as a philosophy, we're not against getting some goodness in a way in which is very palatable. So we thought chocolate could be a great fit. Not only
it sounds like a Willy Wonka product. It's a chocolate bar that's your
that
30 a day.
That has the blend in it. And I mean, we probably wouldn't advocate having one every day, but as a treat, we think, we're not against having chocolate or coffee or all sorts of things which are sometimes considered indulgent, but you can possibly make the choice to have a gut boost within that choice.
You've got to, I guess, trying to sort of get inside your head here, to find the balance between these new ideas and expanding a business, but also staying authentic and very much true to your sort of core values.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of delivering products, that's actually quite easy. If you decide early on, I'm not compromising. I mean, we can compromise, like I maybe mentioned earlier, on some things, like the packaging or, the artwork or all sorts of things like that. But we have a very hard line on the product. It has to be the best it can possibly be, because I think it could be a slippery slope. When you start compromising on one thing, it makes it much easier to compromise on the second and the third and the fourth thing. So I just wouldn't be able to do that, to be able to offer that out to people. So in that way, that's relatively easy if you have a hard line from the beginning.
I definitely want to bring up the relationship with Oxford Food Hub.
Yes.
Because I think it's great that you're, if you like, giving something back here. Explain who they are and what they do and the relationship.
Oxford Food Hub are a fantastic Oxfordshire charity who collect excess food from supermarkets and redistribute it. So we recently spent a morning with them, which was just brilliant, going out in the van, doing food drops and also food pickups, meeting people who work together and the people who donate. So we went to Waitrose and we went to do probably shouldn't say maybe where we went to do the drops, but it was just brilliant driving around and learning, what they're doing and how infiltrated they are in society. It's a great setup, and even in the warehouse, like the atmosphere is brilliant. Everyone's busy sorting stuff. It was great. We did a little challenge to see how many of our 30, the ingredients in our blend of 30, we could find. We did really well. I can't remember the exact number, but they had an awful lot there. So it was
That's really nice. Get the crystal ball out. What do you see for NEWROAD in, say, 5 years' time?
In 5 years' time, I'd like to be very recognisable. I'd like to be able to reach more people. We'd like to have a presence, maybe internationally, if that's possible. But part of what's great about a startup and a new business is that you don't really know where it's going to take you. And I think it's important to respond, whether that's with your product, if you make adjustments to it, to really listen and to what people want and what people need and where it's wanted, like where it's most useful. So we're trying to be good at that.
Well, I'm sure you will be. The success is definitely coming your way. Before we let you go, though, some advice to any early stage startups or entrepreneurs listening to this, thinking, wow, this is, I love what you're doing, Catherine, but give us some takeaways here, a couple of top tips from your experience.
I think talk to as many people as possible. One of the best things about the whole experience has been how brilliant people are. Like, people really like to help, whether it's with a suggestion or just listening or offering a connection. That has been really heartwarming, and actually the best part of the whole experience. But I think get out, talk to as many people as possible. You'll learn something from everyone. You may not want to take on board everything that's offered to you. There'll be some things which are more relevant to your experience or your product or your setup, but you always learn something. So that's very, very important, I think. And also, I would say to get testing as soon as possible. Don't wait too much. We were not brilliant at this, trying to wait for the branding to be perfect and, on lots of different levels, or the website, or really, I think it is very important to get your product out there as soon as possible and to make your mistakes, to learn from your mistakes and just pivot or make adjustments and make your product better. But really listen, I think, really listen to what people want.
Catherine, it's been amazing to speak with you. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Huge thanks to Catherine Hurley Arbibe from wellness brand NEWROAD. And thank you for listening to OxTalks, now in its 4th series. There are 20 previous editions of OxTalks to catch up on, available from where you normally get your podcasts. Let me point you towards an earlier episode featuring Liz Lewis-Jones on how to grow your business through international expansion. There's my conversation with the founder of 923 Jobs, Helen Wright, whose aim is to put the flex into flexible working. And don't miss startups and spin-outs and how to find the right business support with the head of marketing, communications and PR at Oxford University Innovation, Andrea Stewart. Every episode is well worth a listen. Please spread the word, tell your friends or colleagues about us, and if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. You can share your thoughts and suggestions on our social channels, and you can email your ideas for inclusion in future editions too. The address is on the podcast description. Business support in Oxfordshire is close at hand. Enterprise Oxfordshire is at your service. The business support tool can signpost you to expert help in a matter of minutes. Why not take a look? Find it on our website, enterpriseoxfordshire.com. But for now, from the whole Enterprise Oxfordshire team and from me, Howard Bentham, it's goodbye.